Welcome back to This Week in Anderson County. We are honored to be joined in our final segment here, previewing the fall football season with Oak Ridge head coach Joe Gaddis. Coach, welcome back.
Thanks, glad to be here.
And with Mr. Jacob Adams, who is a senior inside linebacker on the Oak Ridge Wildcats. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir, for having me.
I know you all just got out of practice, and we appreciate you being here. Coach, I wanted to ask you first if you could sort of give us a snapshot of where the team is coming off the off-season last year. Any people you lost, guys stepping up, etc. Where the team is right now.
We only had 13 seniors last year, but 6 or 7 of them had played forever. I mean, it seemed like they're 3-year starters. One of them, Jordan Graham, a 4-year starter at running back. So those guys are going to be difficult to replace. We return our entire offensive line back intact. Probably the first time in my career that's happened. It's nice to have Jacob back in the middle of the defense. We've got Jack Rupp-Lobo back at safety. Those 2 guys will anchor the defense for us, and a lot of the other guys are new on defense, especially the secondary. It's going to be brand new except for Jack. On the offensive side of the ball, the guys who will touch the ball the most are pretty new. Mitchell Gibbons, a quarterback, played some last year, started 1 game in the playoffs, did well, came in the Fulton game when Booker got hurt and almost led us back to victory. So he's got a little playing time. Our starting running back is Kendall Jackson. He's a sophomore who's never really played in a varsity game when the game was on the line. So it's going to be an interesting season, to say the least.
Certainly. And as far as I know, the last couple of seasons since you've been back, Coach, tremendous success at Oak Ridge. But is there a certain area of the game that you wanted to see a little bit more improvement of on either side of the football this year, or just the consistency of what you had?
Our kicking game has always been solid, rock solid. Last year was probably as down as we've been in the kicking game. So that's an area. Our kicker going into the season was hurt all year long, never got healthy. We're hoping our kicking game, both in place kicking, kickoffs, extra points, field goals, and punting game, is improved vastly. That'll be huge for us if it is.
Sure. And Jacob, when you were thinking about playing high school football, what was it that really just made you want to go to Oak Ridge of all places?
Well, at first, I didn't even know I was going to go to Oak Ridge. I moved 2 weeks before school started, and then I heard there was just a great atmosphere in the program, and I heard the head coach was really good. So
I agree with you there.
And so it just worked out as it did, and one thing went to the next, and senior year now.
Absolutely. So just the tradition of Oak Ridge. It's great. And Coach, as many people know, you got a brand new field out there coming up for the first time. We're going to see it on August 23rd. Can you tell us a little bit about how that, you were on the show about 6 months ago, about how that came to be, but just a shorter version of that. I know a lot of people stepped up. You served on the committee.
Right.
Can you just tell us how that came to be? We're going to see in a couple of weeks.
Well, the foundation did a heck of a job over the last 5 years. Seems like it's taken forever to get where we are now. And there's a little misconception about why maybe I wanted it. I wanted the turf for one reason only, and that's simply because Blankenship Field the last 15, 20 years has drained terribly.
It's a huge problem.
If we got a little bit of rain, say on Monday or Tuesday, the field was very wet in spots on Friday night. That always worried the heck out of me. So now the turf may add a few years to my life because I won't be worried about the weather all the time.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful, and it's an NFL type turf. It's the turf the Patriots use. It's the same turf that many of the NFL teams use. So we got the best turf that's out there.
Absolutely. And there's still a couple of phases in this project. It's not over yet, if I understand correctly.
Correct. I think the fencing still has to go up. The track will be resurfaced at some point, maybe not during the season. We're also getting a jumbotron, most likely before the first game. That's the hope, anyway.
Wow. And Jacob, when you if you can think back to when you first stepped on that practice field for Oak Ridge, and how far has your game come in the last 4 years as far as your football knowledge? I bet it's been an amazing journey.
Extremely. I have the best defensive coach, I think, in East Tennessee at least. That's maybe more.
Sure.
But I didn't ever play linebacker until sophomore year, and then he's made me to the player I am now.
Sure. And were you originally you weren't playing defense, or were you playing another position? Did you?
I played D end and then left tackle.
Great. So it's been a pretty good transition then.
Yes, sir. It's been great.
And Coach Gaddis, if you could give us a preview of the coaching staff. I guess everyone coming back this year, or any changes?
Well, we lost Quayu Graham. I coached him back in 1988, and he's coached with me here for the last 6 years. He's not going to coach this year. I don't know what the future holds for him. He's still at the high school, and we still talk pretty much on a daily basis. He's helping try to revive the boys club right now, but he's not on the staff. Alex Stewart, a former Oak Ridge Wildcat, is on the staff. Rodney Ellison is on the staff as well. So we've added 2, lost 1, and we've added 2. And I've got to say this about Jacob. He came to us from Bearden. Thank goodness he did.
Yeah.
And he's a heck of a football player. He's a throwback, what I always say, a linebacker, because he's just he's vicious at the linebacker position. He doesn't grab people and sling them down. He nails them. He annihilates them. So I love the way he plays. And the coach he's talking about is Jeff Miner, our defensive coordinator. I coached Jeff back in the early 90s, and Jeff was a great player for us, and he's probably even a better coach.
And yeah, one of the other coaches was saying they remembered him because he gave him fits last year.
He gave everybody fits.
Yeah.
I'm glad he's on our side. We don't have to prepare to block him.
Absolutely. Now, Coach, you opened up on August 23rd with Hardin Valley. If you could just sort of give us a preview of the upcoming season, some of the big games. It's a tough schedule.
Yeah, don't know a lot about Hardin Valley yet because they have a new coach, they have new coordinators. They have a scrimmage tomorrow that we'll certainly hear something about. They scrimmage next week. We'll hear something about that. And we might even swap scrimmage films with them. I don't know about that yet, but we'll know something about them when the time comes. But they'll be good. They'll be a good, solid football team. Our schedule is probably the toughest schedule we've had since 1988. We follow Hardin Valley with Dobbins Bennett, who's always a traditional power.
Sure.
Campbell County much improved over the 20, 30 years ago. Farragut is Farragut. They're going to be real good yet again. West and Powell in our region will be borderline great. Yeah. Powell's going to have a great football team. West is going to have a great football team. Fulton is Fulton. And then Sevier County dropped us, and we added Mount Juliet, Middle Tennessee Power, another 6A team. So our 4 non-region games are all 6A teams, good, solid football teams. Of course, we play Clinton. That's a traditional rival. We play Carnes. We play Campbell County.
That Farragut game stands out to me. It's always such a good game almost every year. Is that almost developed into a rivalry among the players, you think?
I think it's been a rivalry ever since the 2 teams started playing back in the late 70s.
Yeah.
We kind of had our way with them in the early going.
Right.
They won too many games here of late. So I like that game when we win it.
Oh, absolutely.
But I'm not wild about it any other time.
I understand. And Jacob, I wondered if you could talk for a moment about your teammates. You're getting to know these guys, playing with them over the last couple of years. Great group of guys. Sure it's been wonderful for you.
Oh, it's great, and I think this year it's going to be a different team. Last year we had all the playmakers that we had, and now this year I think we're going to be more of a unit, unified as, I guess to say that we would, when one guy's going down, we'll have people to help him out at backup or just replace him, essentially. Not necessarily replace him, but
Step up.
Yeah. And we have a lot of people who can step up, I think.
Sure. And Coach, I asked the other guys, as far as over your career, and you've had a long, distinguished career in a lot of different places, success everywhere you went, how has the game changed, really, since first day coaching? Big picture question, but it's a lot more points on the board.
When I got into coaching, it was much like the way it was when I played high school football, and that is 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You might have 5 or 6 passes a game. It was a rugged game, and he just ran right at people, and the defenses were, usually 8, 9-man fronts because everybody knew everybody was going to run the football. Jacob, as I said earlier, would have done well in that type of game, and he can play well in this game. This is a spread type game now, a lot more passing, and even when it's running, they spread the field a lot with different formations, lots of motion, and just a lot of spread type football.
Sure. And to that point, Jacob, is there a certain type of offense that gives you more challenges than others? Is it I guess you all sort of figured out the hurry up, fast stuff, but is there a certain thing that just gives you trouble more than anything else?
I can't say. I don't want them to know.
Well, there you go. That's a good question.
That's a great answer. That's a coach in the makings.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, exactly. But to that point, Coach, it seems like the game has definitely sped up.
Yeah.
And good defenses adapt.
Oh, absolutely they do. But the game is much faster than it was back 34 years ago.
Sure, absolutely. And as far as we actually had talked to Coach Terry about this, with also the changes in technology with equipment. In a lot of ways, the game is safer than it's ever been with all the equipment precautions. Would you agree with that?
I think the concussion protocol is a big change, and the emphasis on how to tackle. We do tackling drills every day. We teach our guys how to tackle, and more importantly, maybe how not to tackle, and to try to avoid the catastrophic injuries that happen when you do things wrong, technique-wise. And we focus on that a lot, and I think the game, in some ways, has become safer because of that.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you about we were talking about Blankenship Field, but just the tremendous support from the alumni. There were guys, think about, people people that come to my mind: Rick Chan, Alan Beauchamp, people that just step up in this community to talk about the support you get from the alumni.
That's one of the things that that's special about Oak Ridge. The people, anyone who's ever played here, or even some who didn't play here, they all want to come back and give their part to keeping the program where it is and making it even better. So that's a special characteristic of Oak Ridge.
Absolutely. And Jacob, is there a certain game that you're really looking forward to more than others? I know you compete every single week, but is there any unfinished business you want to try to take care of this season, anything like that?
I'm excited for 2 games in particular. Farragut, because that's one of my favorite games to play in general, and then Mount Juliet because it's Mount Juliet. I like the challenge.
Sure. And so you mentioned being able to keep the whole offensive line intact. On the defensive side of the ball, a lot of people returning as well, or is that a little bit more of a challenge?
Well, Jacob returns. Our defensive line, Jackson Adams played quite a bit last year. Matthew Calhoun played quite a bit last year. Jack Replogle played quite a bit. At corner, Isaiah Johnson played some. He actually started some games, but we're not quite as experienced on defense as we are on the offensive side, but I think we're going to be a good defensive football team. Just not as deep right now as we want to be. But I think we'll be, by the end of the season, when playoffs roll around, we have a chance to be pretty good.
Another big picture question I wanted to ask you is always find it interesting when you go into a half, close game, adjustments are made. Sort of big picture question, but how much can you really adjust at halftime?
Well, with the technology today, where in just a few years ago you couldn't do this.
That's what I'm getting at.
We have the video capability now. In the old days were just 5 years ago.
Sure.
You had to ask players when they came off the field, how are they lined up? And you can't, it's hard to see it from the sideline or even from the press box, how the defense is lined up, how they're blocking you on defense. But now we can video all that, and the players can look at the video on the sidelines. When the defense comes off the field, they can look at it with their coaches. When the offense comes off the field, so adjustments are made on the fly or on the run, as opposed to in the old days when major adjustments had to be made at halftime. We still make them at halftime, but we're making them after the first series of the ball game on each side of the ball.
And I imagine it's a lot more effective than the old days, isn't it? Being able to see it and actually you can really pinpoint exactly what's going on.
Sure, because 16, 17-year-olds, sometimes they say a guy's lined up here, and you look at the video, hey, he's not lined up there, he's lined up over here. But it's a lot better now for us as coaches to adjust on the fly.
And what is looking over, your win losses speak for themselves. So recently inducted into the Coaches Hall of Fame here in Tennessee. What's the secret to just continued success and building a program up where it's just going to be successful almost every year? It seems like.
Well, I can't take any credit for Oak Ridge because Oak Ridge is Oak Ridge.
But, it's a tradition, but it's still though.
Well, sometimes it's hard to keep a program, where it's been for a long time. But I attribute that to my coaching staff, to the players that come through, and the fans. I'm one of those guys as a coach. I delegate a lot of responsibility. I surround myself with good coaches. Step out of the way, let them coach. I don't want to mess them up. But our players, we've always had good players here at Oak Ridge, and we have a good coaching staff, and we have good fan support, good administration support from the high school and the school system. So all that adds up to when you put our tradition in there. All that adds up to success.
Sure. And Jacob, as far as I'm assuming y'all have been practicing on the new field for some time now. Have you all been out there yet, or is it?
Well, we've
only
practiced there twice due to rain. And
sure.
But it was when we were on there. It was really nice.
I was going to ask if you noticed any difference, and I got to be excited to get out there.
There's a huge difference. You can feel it, and it also brought game time atmosphere to be on our own home field. Be able to practice out there and see all that stuff.
Absolutely. And Coach, Blankenship, Friday nights under the lights, there's nothing like it. It's just electricity in the air. I want to ask you what you love most about coaching here at Oak Ridge.
Well, I've just pretty much said it. I love the tradition of Oak Ridge. It's hard to, Jacob understands what I'm fixing to say, but unless you've done it, you don't. Walking down the steps at Blankenship Field, having those kids, I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it, and I've done it for years and years and years. It's just something special. The fans up, the kids hitting you on the shoulder pads, shaking your hands when you're coming down as a coach. To me, that's the best entrance in high school football anywhere. I've never seen anything quite like it. That's another big thing. Just Oak Ridge is special. You know, Oak Ridge is very demanding. Oak Ridge, the expectations here are sky high, and I think that's part of the reason why we're generally good year in and year out.
I was going to ask you that as far as expectations. We see it no matter how successful a coach is. I know I always get a kick every fall when Coach Belichick loses a game. Is it finally over for Belichick and Brady? And of course they won the Super Bowl last year. But how do you manage those expectations?
I love them because I think it helps our program. You know, I don't shy away from those. I think our expectations here are always the same. They may be unrealistic certain years, but I think the high expectations, they make our players better. And the tradition that we have to fall back on, some of our players don't want to, you know, be that team that's not real good because of what's happened here in the past. I think that's part of the reason why we're good every year.
And I think you get a lot of teams' best games because they're playing Oak Ridge.
There's no question about that.
Notre Dame, everyone wants to play Notre Dame.
I'll tell our guys that pretty much every week, especially a game where maybe we're expected to win. We're going to get the best game from everybody we play.
Sure. And Jacob, this is your senior year. What's in store for you next year? Do you want to try to continue your athletic career? Or?
Yes, sir. I do want to try my athletic career and see if I can get into college and hopefully play a couple of years in there, and then, you know, make it work with that. I'm going to try and go to the military after football ends and go with that.
Well, I'm wishing you a great senior year. We'll all be watching you. You're on Blankenship. And everyone, of course, get out to the opening game, August 23rd, Hardin Valley at Blankenship on the new field. It's going to be wonderful. Coach, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you taking time out. It's a busy time of year for you all. And Jacob, again, good luck. We'll be watching you. I do want to thank all of our sponsors. I didn't really get a chance to get to you, but you saw the commercials. But please support them. We will, of course, be live next Thursday night at 7 p.m. Everyone have a good evening.